it's funny, Dave Weinberg. How many people out there consider themselves the mayor? Yet, do you really want that office?
No, you probably don't. I actually know the mayor, and I know he probably doesn't either.
All right, so you were up at the NovaCare complex today.
Correct.
And I know as I scanned through the transcripts, there's things, you try to read the transcript, figure out what the coaches are talking about. It's a little different when you're actually there. You can kind of read between the lines and stuff. I know this is kind of unique, too, because Colin played tight end at Temple, said this time last year he was getting cut from the Bears camp. Like,
right.
There's a guy who, and I don't know if you saw the Andrew Brandt tweet earlier today about, the likelihood of all these players that are going to play in a preseason game on Thursday night, knowing that they're playing and giving their heart out Thursday night and they're cut Friday. That's
true. Yeah, that's the unfortunate reality of this, that there are players who are probably have virtually no chance, but talking to a couple guys today, they know that this preseason game on Thursday isn't just about trying to make the Eagles, it's about trying to make any team. You actually really are auditioning, as Colin probably mentioned earlier, that you're auditioning for 32 teams here, and what you show on the field on Thursday is going to go out to the rest of the league. And so just if things don't work out here, that doesn't mean that your dream is over. It just means there's another opportunity somewhere else.
And we had John McMullen on earlier. On the defensive side of the ball, he said that Jim Schwartz is always a must-listen. He's always entertaining to listen to, but he tries to be secretive, and yet maybe he let the cat out of the bag a little bit about how the secondary is going to be configured. Yeah. I think the whole defense seems to be a little bit up in the air to me, though. And there are certain players that you need on the field, Avonte Maddox being one of them, of course. But there's so many players coming off of injuries. Fletcher Cox hasn't practiced all training camp. He's kind of sort of been working out, but nobody really knows what he's doing. But he's, no doubt he's the linchpin of that defensive line. So there's a lot. There seems like there's a lot that still has to be settled between now and September 8th. Who knows if Ronald Darby is really going to be back, if Jalen Mills is going to stay on the pup list as he's coming off. Rodney McLeod seems like he's back all the way, which is a good sign for them. But Nigel Bradham hasn't practiced yet, and he's their most important linebacker. So I'm still waiting to see, how everything shakes out as far as the next 2 weeks are concerned. As to, on paper their defense should be very strong, but there's a lot of ifs there that still have to be answered. Now we have a young fan in the audience here who's wearing his Sam Darnold shirt. He's wearing a Jets t-shirt, right? Which I thought, was funny because I was talking about nobody is going to care about this Eagles-Jets final preseason game. And as if on cue, God sent him in walking into the Barefoot Bar. Now, this is as close you're going to get to Sam Darnold, I think, until the season starts. Yeah. But yeah. Well, today was all about the body issue, by the way. That's the big news? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, Colin, you bring that up then. Because
what's going on with that?
That's big news for the O-line.
Right.
Yeah. But Jason Peters isn't on the list, which I think.
What's the story, Dave? Go ahead.
I talked to Lane Johnson today. He was the one that kind of came up with the idea.
He's excited for it, I'm sure.
Yeah. He broached the subject to ESPN, and then he had to get permission from the marketing department of the Eagles. But as you probably recall, Zach Ertz and his wife were in the body issue 2 years ago, so they kind of have some background with it. But yeah, they had 5 guys. They asked Jason Peters. He said, well, maybe if I was 28 again, I might want to give it a shot, but not now. So they put in Big V to substitute for him. Lane said it was a lot of fun. It was kind of a hot day out on the concrete in the players' parking lot of the Link, of all places. That's where they shot it. So
when did they do it, and how was it just today that we're finding out about it?
Yeah, I guess because of the issues being the ESPN kind of released it today. That
all right. This leads naturally into how do they find out about it, or who blabbed, or who put the information out? You know where I'm going. Andrew Luck. I mean, where were you over the weekend when this news breaks, and where do you fall on the side of this? Because as a journalist, it's your job to report the news, right? If you dig up a source and they give you something, you damn well are going to put that in the paper, and you're for sure going to tweet that out first. And yet, there's a lot of people out there upset because Andrew Luck had to hear the boos because that information broke. What a weird circumstance, right, Dave?
Yeah, it's certainly really a strange dynamic, yeah. I was actually I might have been just coming off the beach, as a matter of fact, when I found out about it. And,
Shocker.
It was very, What, that I'm at the beach?
Yeah, both. But you at the beach and the news,
Yeah, it's kind of a given, yeah. But, Yeah, I was as surprised as anybody, but I have absolutely no problem with him doing what he does. Granted, never played in the league, but I've been having covered the Eagles for 26 years. I know what they have to go through. I know what their bodies are subjected to. I know what their hearts and their minds are subjected to. So anybody that decides they've had enough, more power to them. God bless them. Best of luck in their future. But I would never criticize anyone for making that decision, no matter who they are. I mean, I just don't see how the fans could be upset by that at all. I mean, maybe the timing was a little odd, but still, you can't begrudge Andrew for doing what he did.
No, I don't think you can really, criticize the.
I'm sorry if you drafted him in your fantasy league.
Yeah.
Well, listen, if you're doing your fantasy draft 2-3 weeks before the season, that's your fault.
Yes,
right, correct.
That you deserve that punishment.
Yeah, sorry,
that's
OJ,
your fault.
Come on, man. You know it has to be after the 4th preseason game.
Yes.
But
well, my son had his the other night.
But no, you got to be better than that,
Man.
though. If you're investing in fantasy football, your time, which it takes a lot of time, if you care what you're doing, don't have it before the preseason games end.
So we have, Dave Weinberg here, who you've been covering the Eagles and a lot of different things for 30 years almost, right? And then we have Colin Thompson here, who's been in NFL locker rooms and Division I football player. So my question is to both of you, like, Dave, have you ever experienced, I know not at the magnitude of this story on Saturday night with Andrew Luck, but have you ever experienced something where you acquired information and maybe you were one of the first to do that, or you're deciding if you want to write a story or not, or release this to the public because you're quote unquote first on the scene? And how did you handle that? And then on the flip side with Colin, have you ever been in a locker room where a journalist reported something about one of your teammates or anything going on with your team where you or the other players in the locker room are like, what, why are they doing this, or why did they release this at this time? So kind of two sides of the fence there, if that made sense.
It's funny you should mention it because I was thinking about this on the drive back. A couple of years ago, there was a running back from Bridgeton High School named Dominique Williams, and he played for Wagner. Got signed by the Jets, got released, got picked up by the Minnesota Vikings. So he goes through training camp, and he's a backup. He gets released. This is certainly not on the same magnitude, but kind of similar. He gets released, and he calls me. Actually, I was on the beach again. And he calls me and says, I'm signing with the Arizona Cardinals. Their running back just got hurt. They're signing me to the active roster. I can either go to the Vikings practice squad, or I can go to the Cardinals active roster. So naturally, he's going to go to the Cardinals active roster. So I put it out on Twitter, and Vikings fans just skewered me for, Dominique's not going anywhere. How dare you? Where do you get your sources? And I'm like, I talked to the guy.
Right.
I don't need
his mouth.
I don't need sources here, And so then I had to backtrack. Dominique called me back. Can you please hold off on writing the story because people are upset. I'm like, okay, well, whatever. But yeah, it's just you have to kind of balance the line a little bit. You might know something, but you have to kind of weigh all the angles before you decide what you're going to do with it.
Yeah, I probably haven't been in long enough to have a crazy story, but I will say this: a story that shook me was when the Bears signed Khalil Mack. I woke up in the morning, the morning of when cuts will be made, and I screenshotted it and sent it to every one of my tight ends, a couple of my friends on the team. Oh my God, this is unbelievable! Yeah. I mean, this is Super Bowl type move here,
right?
And Super Bowl type chip you're adding to the team.
Yeah,
and
sure.
I was like, wow, man, I left all the chips on the table. I have an opportunity to be a part of this. This is something really special. I'm ecstatic. And then I got cut about 4 hours later.
Oh, my goodness.
Bring your iPad, bring your playbook. It's time to go. So
take that as a screenshot.
Yeah. So I didn't tweet it, but I sent it to everyone. But to me, the media, that was something we didn't really expect to happen. The team was loaded already, in my opinion, one of the best rosters in the NFL, and then to see that happen was pretty exciting. So that would be my media story.
That's Colin Thompson talking with us. Follow at Colin Thompson TU. He's got the unique experience of being in NFL locker rooms and playing professional football. Dave Weinberg with us. Press AC Weinberg, right, is his Twitter handle. He's just back from the NovaCare complex, back to Shangri-La, right, Dave?
This is true.
We're here paradise. At the Barefoot Bar at Marquis de Lafayette, having a little football foursome as we sit here and kind of go around the table discussing some of the things out there. Dave, how about like Steve Burloin comes on one side and said, Andrew Luck, that's terrible. I had surgeries, I persevered. Then Doug Gottlieb put something out, and Troy Aikman comes back at him. I mean, Troy Aikman cursed on Twitter.
Right. It's just a complete circus. And I know everybody's different. Everybody has their own thresholds, physically, mentally, emotionally. So I don't know where you get off just because you're able to play through something or to deal with something. You don't necessarily, your experience isn't going to be the same as someone else's. Sandy Koufax walked away at age 30 after winning the Cy Young, and because he wanted to be able to sign his name, and his left elbow was so bad that he couldn't do it. Jim Brown wanted to go into the movies that same year. Barry Sanders,
Calvin Johnson.
Right,
yeah,
absolutely. The list goes on and on. You just don't. Everybody's tale is different. Everybody's, like I said, threshold is different. So I don't see where, no disrespect to Steve Burloin or any of the other guys, but I don't see where they can criticize anyone else for their decisions.
Yeah.
So John McMullen told us that last year he got 52 out of the 53 roster spots correct in his prediction. Are you that good? Do you attempt to pull that off, or as the veteran scribe that goes back to the Westchester days, do you go like, when the list comes out, I'll react to it?
I learned my lesson a couple years ago when Dave Spadaro tried to guess the 53 on the Eagles website and got it wrong. And, guys were reading it, getting upset. They thought they were cut.
Actual players from the team, right?
Some guys thought they made it, some guys who didn't, some guys thought they were cut and they weren't. So I learned my lesson there that you never know who's reading your website
Players
or
read.
your